we need your magic. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. No, that's fine. No, Herman, it's okay. Does that work? I'm not going to go on. I just want to introduce Shelley Cappy, who's going to introduce Herman Hertzberger, our very, very special guest. And I want to thank you all for coming tonight. What's, I think, incredibly important, and I don't know if you all read the email that I wrote the lecture, but we have an architect here who, among many other things, has invented his own school, and Shelley Cappy, Shelley being one of the founders of the school here. It's incredibly appropriate that she Shelley, please come up and see if you can. There, it's perfect. It's working. Shelley Cappy.
Thank you, Neil. It is working. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here for such a special occasion. In 1981, I received a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts to do a lecture series at SCI-Arc on international architecture. I had seen the Centraal Beheer building of Herman Hertzberger published and thought it was a masterwork, and I called him. And I was able to speak with him personally. He was very accessible to me. And I told him that I thought he was doing some of the best work around. And it was the beginning of the postmodern years, and there was some dreadful work happening and being created. And I really admired Herman for the work he was doing. And I told him that I thought it would be wonderful for him to come and talk to our students about his work, because I admired it so much versus the other work that I didn't admire. And I was very outspoken about it, and he said, "So, you want me to put on a monk's robe and go out and preach?" And I said, "Yes, I want you to come to SCI-Arc and be a part of this lecture series." So we both laughed, and that was the beginning of our relationship. He came in '81, and he showed his work. He showed Centraal Beheer, which, are you showing that tonight? I hope you'll still show it. And he talked about personal space and how he created the office spaces for people and let them infill in their own way to give them their own personal expression so it became more meaningful to them. He talked about his old folks' home and the doors of the rooms that he called a horse door, which ironically we call a Dutch door, where it splits open so that shy elderly people might feel free to open the door halfway and still make contact with their neighbors. And he talked about things that a lot of people don't talk about. And we were all interested in his work and very impressed with the humanity of this man. We visited him in Amsterdam with students looking at his work. He came back to SCI-Arc 2 or 3 times and also visited us in Vico when we were teaching, and gave a lecture there and sat in on studio crits and became a part of the program there. He's a natural educator. He's been involved in education since 1960 at the Berlin Architecture Academy and 1970 at Delft Technical University, where he's been all of these years. And in 1990, he founded the Berlage School in Amsterdam for graduate studies. And I would like to think that his visits at SCI-Arc, both in LA and in Vico Morcote, Switzerland, inspired him in these efforts. He remained chairman of the Berlage for 5 years, and it was during busy practice years. He's always been busy and always doing big work and small work and human work. And he's written books on architecture to be used in teaching. I hope we have them all in the library. There have been many books written about him by others, about his work. And there's a new book that he showed us that talks about space. And it's about to be it's written in Dutch, published in Dutch in Holland. And it's about to be translated in English, so we're looking forward to that, because Herman Hertzberger is a man who knows how to manipulate space, large space, small space, intimate space, in design. So it's a celebration to have him here again, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce a Dutch treasure, Herman Hertzberger.
Thank you very much. I'm gradually more interested in too specific about buildings, too much concerned with form and making things that become useless after some time, and to anticipate the unexpected. We are all talking about, in fact, the anticipation of the unexpected. We could learn more from the structure of a city. Take Manhattan. Manhattan has a grid, which you may call the structure of the city. This grid remains. Whatever you build, whatever you tear down, whatever you remodel, it is always the grid that is there. And it is even so that the grid of, say, gridiron, like in Manhattan, is enabling or make it possible for the buildings, for the blocks, to be different, to be a great variety, and change. You know, because of that grid that remains and gives the liberty to the blocks to be different and to change. This is where on which my work has been based all the time. Sorry. How can I handle the other one? Oh, I need two of them. This is the Centraal Beheer building, which was completed in 72. And I have a lot of mechanics to handle. And this, you could say, is a sort of small city. It's fragmented. I mean, this part doesn't belong to it. It's the neighbor. But this part is, you know, the building is so fragmented. My goodness, you are having complicated mechanics here. How can I stop that thing? I can't stop it anymore. Yeah. No. So it's fragmented into, I don't know how it works. Do you know how to do it? Thank you. It is fragmented, and in between the fragments there are sort of streets. They're treated like streets by means of this street-like material and having the light from the sky. And so it is a sort of settlement rather than a building. So far I'm not very successful, no. What you see is that what is towers here, or if you like, small buildings, in the inside is shifted into spaces. So this is the spaces, the interior spaces that are created by the towers. So from the outside you see the streets, in the inside you see the reverse of that. You know, so in the inside the towers are, so to say, eaten away and become part of the streets. So this is a very complex conglomerate of space. And it the organization of the building is based on groups that are working in this tower, 16 people at the maximum, and with the bridges they are coming together, and as a whole it works as one big workshop. And the thing is that it is still working like this. At the beginning, in the 70s, it was like this, and it is still like this. And all the different ways of organizing an office building did not affect the building actually. And this is due to the fact that what was made, you may call a structure, a whole, which can change its infill. So you see the people have different clothes, they have different tables, you know. It is like a big tree which changes its leaves any year. So the tree remains the same, and the leaves are changing. I can't handle this. This idea of the structure and the infill started for me with these two pictures. They're both amphitheaters, and the one amphitheater is interpreted as a complete town, as an inhabited. The other amphitheater is interpreted as a piazza in the city. So the city absorbs the amphitheater from this side and leaves open this piazza, and in this picture it absorbs the amphitheater from this side and leaves open the surrounding. Both are the same structure. In different circumstances, in different periods, the same structure is able to direct a complete different, give direction to a completely different different thing. So I am basically seeing a difference between the structure of a building and its infill. Its infill being temporarily, and the structure having a longer time cycle. Like in a city, streets remain, not eternally, but have a long time cycle, and the buildings have a short time cycle. And this is, I think, an idea to able to cope with time, with change in time. This is a housing project in Germany where we try to counterpoint this sprawl of private housing, because all the people, like here in Los Angeles, want to have a villa for their own, and in this completely this neighborhood without any identity, without any structure, we made a sort of clear gesture, and the clear gesture is in fact the roof, and under the roof there are different housing types. These houses are all designed by us, but they could also, thinking urbanistically, be designed by different architects. The roof is even going down and going up. You see it here. There sometimes are 2 stories, sometimes there are 3. And the idea is, and this is the sort of idea I'm looking for all the time, is to make this sort of gesture that can house all these differences. Here you see the inside of the block, which is a sort of place, a green place where children can play, and where all the entrances are at that side. You know, all the entries are at that side, and this is the outside where you have the gardens. Are you doing it now? I don't know. It doesn't respond to my pushing. You see different housing types with communal staircases and with gallery streets in the air, houses on top of each other, and this all is dominated by the big roof from which the balconies are suspended, and which is sort of made more clear by having this holes. The other project in Germany, which is based on the same idea, is a project for a sort of brain center, as they call it. And instead of just make another piece, you know, like the extension of the city is done piece by piece as a patchwork made by an architect. Another architect, very happy to have a commission for such a patch, makes another beautiful piece, and in this way the whole landscape is eaten, one piece after the other. Our idea was to continue the landscape and, as it were, dig lines in it, dig streets in the landscape of this artificial hill. This is an artificial landscape where the grass is just continuing over the roofs. You can walk over the roofs, and under these roofs there is place for all these differences. So the different people who are settling there, they can hire their own architect, and all these architects can make their own little thing under it. And the roof, so to say, is keeping it together as a structure, as an enveloping gesture. So you see, you can maybe recognize the different architects that all made their beautiful thing. You have some round ones, you see some Richard Meyer buildings, you see all sort of also very modern buildings that don't like to be in line, and all the possibilities are there, and it is all, so to say, mitigated by this smooth landscape taking it together. This is an idea that, of course, could not be realized because all the different firms to be put there, they all wanted architecture, you know, and they were very much afraid that they wouldn't come because the architects want their little buildings, and in this way they couldn't show off. And of course, all these little buildings, they are going to be on the cover of a magazine, and so the photographer would stand here and would show this as if this was the only object in the world, and show how beautiful it was on the cover, and also this one, and also this one. And in this way, that would be impossible. The other building, which was more or less based on the same idea, is the theater we made in Breda, in Holland, where the different parts, like flight towers, you know, they are determined by theater engineers. As an architect, you cannot change this sort of stubborn dimensions. And when you see theaters, they always dominate the city by their strange, this strange stubs, you know, this so to say are higher than the other buildings, and they're not very nice. And by overcovering it with a roof that takes all the parts together, it's not dominating the city anymore, but it's smoothly being part of its environment. You see this building is coming in, and you see this facade in here. So what I try to do is not designing a building anymore, but designing, so to say, how the buildings come together, how the parts come together, and I have little or no influence on these parts, like the organization of the theater has been decided more by these theatrical engineers than by me as an architect, and they consider us as a sort of consultant to make facades around that thing which is logistically and as an organization determined by the other people. And what we are doing is trying to organize the parts so that they sort of form a city together. So you see this old building is part of the street. There's the film house. At that side there's the theater, and we made connections by means of these bridges. And what most architects design as a beautiful foyer, beautifully shaped, here is a sort of leftover space in between all these elements, which is more a street than a room. So what you see here is how this building, if you still like to call it a building, is squeezed in between existing buildings, and part of that thing is as I said, decided by theater engineers, the distance, all these measures. And here there is the film house, here there is this existing building, and the site is so thin that the building is squeezed in between the other buildings. That's due to the fact that the nice plots are sold to developers, also in Holland, and for public buildings, they only there's only plots available that couldn't be sold because they were too bad, and so we have to deal with this very strange squeezed locations. I'm beginning to learn. And so we had at a certain moment a model of all this parts organized as good as possible together, and we thought, what are we going to do with this? And I mean, this is going to be a mess. This is a sort of chaos of elements that are all placed in the right position. in the right relation to one another, but how to get this together. And then we decided to fold a piece of paper on top of it. In fact, there was a model, a big model, and we covered it with paper, and we started to cut in this paper in such a way that it was, so to say, falling down over the different elements. And in this way, we kept, by means of that roof, we kept the whole thing together. So the roof became once more, like in that housing project, the means to keep the elements together. And we are going to change already this building because it is such a success that they want to extend it. I don't know whether it's a success as a result of the architecture, but the architecture is part of the success, that they want to change. They want to make a restaurant in here, and they ask for another bridge to connect this part, which is possible in this building. I mean, we were in the Getty Museum this afternoon, and I'm really puzzled about the very beautiful architecture of Richard Meyer, and everything is perfect, and you know, all these forms are really, you can say it's not good, but I think it's very good. It's a very precise piece of sculpture. But I cannot think of any change in buildings like that, because you know, when they say we have to extend that library because it's a success, what is going to happen? So we are trying to design less specifically, more open, more expecting, anticipating the unexpected, so to say, more like an urban designer. So I'm gradually more designing like my buildings, like an urban designer or even a planner is doing the city. So this is a different sort of aesthetics. This completely amorphous space is kept together, so to say. I don't say this as a sort of how do you say, emergency measurement, but I see this as a very positive and important means of designing, that you find means to keep all these parts together even when it's going to change. And that is going to change from the first day of your design, and it's going on after the completion. More bridges in, because the film house is a success, so we have to add another film auditorium, how you call it, and another restaurant, and all this is kept together by the roof, and in this case by the colored columns. So this was the first time in my life that I asked for color to keep things together, because it's a paradox. By making difference in colors, you keep, so to say, this together. These columns are standing in line, but you don't feel it anymore, and they don't need to be in line. It's the color that binds it together. This is another building which is designed in an urban way. It's a competition. We did not win. These people did not understand well, you know, it's always like that. When you do something understandable, you win, and when you do something which is a step ahead, you're not winning. This is in a cold climate in Malmö in Sweden. where they ask for a university library, which could be part of the city and of the university. So they wanted to use this library to hinge, to how do you say, to hinge the city to the university. And what we actually did was make this envelope, this form, this concrete slab that is going around, and which can house a building. And I'm not so much interested to build this building. You could ask an architect for designing this thing. But for me, the most important thing was to make this envelope in such a way that you have the conditions to make this into a big city piazza. So the idea is to have curtains that you can put around, so that you have a city place like the Rockefeller Center, where you can make an ice rink, or you can, and you see we have this sort of tilted floor, so that you can make steps and have people sitting, and maybe have, I don't know what sort of activities that are done by the university or by the city or together. I don't know whether this is the first idea for a city piazza which you can close off and protect by means of curtains. But the idea is in fact simple. We studied the idea of circus tents and found out that they put up this circus tents within an hour and a half, and with the same means we would be able to put these curtains up and have this place. And you see, these are two pictures from New York. I made them in 68, and the one is showing how an ice rink can be the heart of the city, and the other is the steps of the Columbia University, meant to be monumental, in order to underline. This is what the architect wanted to do. He wanted to underline the solemnness, the importance of this university, and therefore in the history of architecture you have steps to put it on a base and to let people walk up. But architects cannot prevent that the steps are also used going to be used in the reversed way and become a grandstand. This is one of the most beautiful mechanisms I know about. Conditions for monumentality that become reversed into conditions for informality. And I use this means, I'm inspired by this means to use in my buildings. This is a completely different thing, but it is sort of related in form by this with this project in Malmö. It is a traveling exhibition of my work. There are 4 pavilions that are they consist of 2 elements, and they are like this Malmö thing. There are envelopes, the one in this direction, the one in the other direction, and they are put together like cages and then put in a container and shipped over the world. The nice thing is that you don't need big material because the pavilions attract people, and once you are in, you are so near all the small material, all the small photographs and the small models that you don't need to make them larger. And the idea is to the fact that this parts can be put together and put in the container and shipped. And you see all the small things that are exhibited here, and you don't need to rearrange the exhibition every time. You don't need to send people to this or that place to check in what space the things are going to be hung and rearrange, make a design, because the thing is ready. And this is with all the working models. Here you see the theater I just showed you, and people are attracted by it, and they go into the pavilions. They have their own lighting, and I think it's the sort of the same idea of making an envelope. I stop calling it structure from now on, because structure is a word that is not it's not topical. People today are just very creative to avoid the word structure. For the moment, I keep it with the word envelope that contains all the work. This is the building we made in Japan, in the rice fields, in a very small scale surrounding, with small houses, the beginning of a city. We had to make a dormitory for a big industrial firm, and the dormitory is quite big. It's for 100 units with everything that comes with it, and we decided to make it into small parts, to cut it in pieces. And the cutting in pieces has two different opens up two different possibilities. First of all, the building is going to be smaller. It's again like the Centraal Beheer becomes fragmented into pieces. And the second thing is that you have views all the time. So you have not a corridor that is going through that building as a slab, which would be building from here to there. And but it is you're walking in bits of corridor, and then you walk over bridges, and you have the beautiful view in the fields. I never make corridors. I avoid any corridor for my building. I think corridors are bad. They are always bad. They are always bad because they are too dark. They are not. They're just not nice. What can I say about corridors more than they are just not nice? And they're the sort of thing architects use because they are unable to make a good project, and they are invented because architects put their rooms together in a non-urbanistic way. As soon as you think urbanistically about your building, you are making streets but not corridors. And the difference I'm going to explain to you. So one of the possibilities is what we did here. You have bits of corridor that are never dark and never have the feeling of too much of closedness, because you walk over these bridges all the time. So there is no way of having these buildings vertically organized. The building is just vertically organized. It's not houses for different groups of people. The building is just organized in a horizontal way, but it's just taken apart. And you see how this parts work with the bridges, and you are looking out, and this is quite nice. And adjacent to that series of tower-like parts, here you see, there's the communal dining area with kitchens, self-kitchens, library, and all the other things. And this is organized in a strip, you know, with outlook to two sides, where there's gardens and where there's a Japanese pond. And so this is the annex of the building with skylight here, and always stairs. I always use stairs to provide the possibility of informal sitting, and the stairs are able to also anticipate the unexpected. So here you see how this space relates to two sides. The site is quite small, and we try to make it as long as possible with very big sliding doors, outside terraces, strips of flowers, in such a way that in every time of the year there is something blooming. And here you see the outside, the way this concrete is, all this beautiful Japanese concrete, which we made, which we sort of made like the skin of a crocodile by means of a plastic, I don't know how it is called. They use, this is a sort of sheet with all this small bubbles on it, which they use for insulation purposes. And then it was rolled with black paint, and the holes are kept as concrete. You ask yourself maybe how it is possible to make these bridges with the air in between. The solution of this question is that our living units are in 2 floors. We have a section which is so that the units have a mezzanine, and the not corridors, the streets, are just on this floor, and this is not used. This is just for technical equipment, so that you have these high windows, and what used to be a room of this size became now a room of this size plus an extra room. And on the roof there are terraces, and so you see this is the height of one living unit, and this and this and this. So There's a mezzanine, which is diagonally. It is, you know, when you know about Le Corbusier, his early work, you see how this diagonal is exploited. By making the void diagonal, it gives more space. I mean, voids are very important because they break through this sort of the imperative of the height of rooms. And like here, a void is in a big public space. It's quite usual and very beautiful, but as soon as you do that also in rooms, in small rooms, it gives a feeling of more than just a room. And the people that are living here, that we interviewed about what they thought of their living unit, most of them said, independently of each other, that they liked the idea of the mezzanine just because it was more a house than a room. So the difference between a house and a room seems to be that you have different possibilities. So you can have your sleeping business upstairs and have people downstairs. I mean, the Japanese are very clean, but there are lots of Americans also in that dormitory. So they like to have a separate sleeping unit where they can keep their bed and everything the way they want, and still have people around downstairs. So this old idea of having the mezzanine gives space in the double sense, you know. It gives space to the people that they don't need to clean up their things always. Liberty, space in the sense of liberty, and also the feeling of breathing more freely. Got stuck. Anyway, you may be. So this is an important slide. I want to have it. Yes, because it tells you about the sun shields, and the sun shield, you know, because it's a very high spaces. There's a lot of sun coming in, so we made sun breakers in the zone above, and we had them with solar cells. So we made this solar cells functional in the sense that where you make sun breakers, you make it because you don't like the sun. So you make them exactly in those places where you want to get rid of the sun. So now you get rid of the sun in a quite nice way, because the sun is absorbed, is eaten, so to say, at these places by the solar cells, and is transformed into energy. What I wanted to do, but I couldn't get that through, is that energy would be used by making them movable, so that they would be, so to say, self-directing by means of the energy they ate. I mean, that would be almost biological, and I think that would have been nice, but they wanted to have it more, used more seriously for the lighting in the building, and that's what happened. This is the big school building of which you made that poster. I don't know how you got that photograph. Maybe it was sent by my office, but I didn't know about it. But this is a big school. In our terms, a big school. I mean you may call it a small school, but it's for 1,300 people, and actually it is not a school at all. I mean, it's meant to be as a school, but it works for 57 different different nationalities, because in Holland you have a lot of immigrants And these immigrants, they come from all places over the world, also from places where they have, they can hardly write their language, most from Africa and from the hill villages. And they come in our culture and they don't know what to do. They have no language, no knowledge of the language. They have, they are lost in the city. And for that reason, you know, I thought that this place, which they call their school, where they have to learn some language and some trades, so that they can at least get a job. I mean, the main problem for these people is how to get a job. When they have a job, they will, so to say, be kept out of the criminal circuit. If they have no jobs, they will be lost in the streets and probably become criminal. And so this is one of the biggest problems we have to face in our country. And so this is a school, not very intellectual, but where they learn all sorts of trades. And I interpreted this as a place for these people where they would like to be, like to go to, and not be lost. So I wanted the interior really as a piece of the city, as a city-like, as a model of the city. And to explain you something technical first, we had this section, this split-leveled section, because that allows you to not make floors that are, so to say, separate from each other, but by making this split-leveled floors, there's more, there's no separation. You know, you're always feeling the how do you say, you're feeling this, you're not feeling this as slices anymore. And the other thing is that the fire department asks always for compartments. And when you have compartments, it doesn't work anymore, because then it's a sort of building-like. So we had all these galleries at the outside for exits, direct exits from all the classrooms. And what you see here is that this is a very deep building with the classrooms at the sides, and in the middle a very large atrium where there are all these balconies hung. Help. So actually this building is one space, and in this one space you have these balconies where you can sit, where this 56 nationalities find places to hang out and to meet each other, because all these ethnic groups need their so to say their own corner. So they'll find their own corner in one of these places. And also are these places appropriate for educational purposes outside the classroom. So the classrooms have all this sort of ongoing window, so that there's contact with this place, and this is a sort of platform where you can put tables. We had no money for tables anymore, but you can put tables. They'll find out where you can maybe drink coffee or or have lessons, or have reviews, or what you want. So, except for the official classrooms, we managed to have a lot of extra space which is not determined. This is what I call space. I mean, when it's determined, it's not space anymore. When it's determined, it's for something, and it is a subject of rules, a subject of power of people that are, so to say, responsible for that. So what I try to make is as much, as large area as possible, which is not under the responsibility of some teacher, but which is under the responsibility of the school as a whole. And you see in the middle there is this elevator, which is only used by the teachers, and here you see the hall, the big hall you saw on the plan, which is the central piazza. There's no auditorium, no specific solemn room, but it is just the place like in the city. I show you. So this is what you had on your poster, and I still don't know how you got that picture. In fact, this refers to what I did in '83 in a small primary school in Amsterdam, the Apollo School, where we made also the classrooms split level like, and made the split level like an amphitheater. And this was done directly associated with the stairs in the Columbia University. Because I thought making the stairs, they will be used for all the things they have no determined place for. So they're waiting for the teacher, they're eating the sandwich, they're making unofficial performances, and also official performances that the whole school can be gathered together. I'm always, in all school designs, counting, making the calculation that all the kids in that school can be housed in a central space. That is absolute condition, that all the kids of the whole school can be housed in the central space. And I used this example. This worked so well in the new school and multiplied it by 7. And so there are 7 of these places in this school. And I'm absolutely sure that these places are going to be used, if not in the same way, in an analogous way. This is the school I was referring to. There are 2 of them, like villas in between the villas of this neighborhood, and so they are based on the system that you have the classrooms, not separated in floors, but that there is this contact, this diagonal contact from classroom to classroom, and there's always this stairs. These schools work still quite well. Skylight. So this, you could say, is a model of the city center. If you consider the school as a micro city, and this is in fact not untrue, because the children who are living and working in such a school they are in fact have to learn very much how they get along with each other. So a school is not just learning mathematics and languages. It is also and before all how to learn how to get along with each other, and therefore this model of a city might be relevant also in that respect. I show you another school. We completed a small school with 8 classrooms based on a slightly different concept. You have the gym and all the administration things here. You have 4 classrooms, and on top you have another 4 classrooms. So they are in that part of the building, and the gym and the other things are here. And in the middle you have the piazza with a quiet place, a sort of with some steps down, which is not part of the circulation. So the circulation is not going through that place. So this place is for specific things where children can do, well, you know, communal things. And you see the light is coming in. This is sort of complex, formal knot. I'll explain you how that works. So within the building, you see this light well, and it's extremely important that there is this reflection here, because with that reflection you get a much better quality of light inside. Making just a light in the air without reflection, the light is less intense. You need more glass, and the quality is less. Here you see that sunken area, and you see from what the children are making here, you see that they make vulnerable constructions that are respected by all the people around. In some way or another, the fact that this is sunken and you have the steps again the steps makes that this is a respected area, and an area that is, so to say, recognized unconsciously as a place, and this is what I call place. So this school is organized around a micro piazza, because what this is what the Piazza San Marco is in Venice. I mean, and what all this the main places in cities represent, which is, of course, this is not a small city, it's the model of a city. There's a large difference between a small city and the model of a city. It is not a city. It's definitely not a city, but it's the model of a city. This is another school which is based on a main street model. I mean, you have cities that are based on a main street, on a string, which is so to say, collecting all the things alongside. And this school is of that type. And it could have been much longer. I found out that by making it twice as long, it would have worked as well. And you could even make a very long school with different school organizations, just like in a street where you have different shops in the next block that have nothing to do with each other, except that they are collected alongside that strip. And what you see is that there is a sort of double corridor, which works as one alley, which is represented by this vault sort of roof. And in the middle there is a train of adjacent spaces. I'll show you a photograph of this sort of small place in the middle. So there are sort of small neighborhood places in the middle, and here are the remedial teaching computer spaces. On top there is a library and all the things you need. Here are the classrooms, and in between the classrooms there are units for the clothes and the toilets. And these clothes are very important because all the schools I've seen in my life are just destroyed by the clothes that are hanging in the corridors and that make it into corridors. And they don't smell nice, and you have when it's rainy, and you have no walls for putting tables anymore. In this way, by putting them in niches, you have all these walls at your disposal for educational purposes. So no corridor. So I'll show you the no corridor street. There's in this school no corridor. You have these niches in between where you have the clothes, and everything is used. And the nice thing is that since classrooms have always, all spaces have their most active zone where the light comes from. Most classrooms have the active zone next to where the facade is. And here, by having the light coming in also here and having glass roofs here, you activate this part of the classrooms. And by making extra ledges to the window frames, you give the possibility to put all the things they produce in these classrooms in this sort of becoming sort of shop window. And adjacent to the classrooms there are all sorts of activities and things. So what I try to do is to get rid of the strong separation of classroom and outside space called corridor. So the classroom is, so to say, blooming out into this central space. This is a sliding door. You can get in, and when the sliding door is coming out, you have a small corner, a place for people to make some sort of thing out of the circulation again. So this is the other paradigm, the paradigm of the street. And this is the space in between the way the magazines like it, because magazines hate people, like architects hate people, because I can prove that because all the photographs are always without people. So and since architects publish what they like, and they don't show people, so they don't like people. And I am not particularly fond of people, but it is a sort of strange thing that architecture is sort of considered as art, and you know, art like big sculptures. And this is what you learn all the time, that architecture is a sort of major sculpture thing. And I've just another opinion. And of course, these window frames are their graphical quality is of course better without all this junk. But all this junk is just, I think it's quite nice, all this junk. And also these people, this is just the extra that architecture has and that art has not got. And we should exploit that, I think. So this is the small places in between these two rows of classrooms where you have sliding doors so that you can change the conditions of these places. And of course they are now full of junk again, but they are protected places and always walls where you can sit and or not. So this model of the main street feeds back to what I consider the primary small city I know, which is then here Dubrovnik, which is completely organized around this main street. All the streets are perpendicular to that main street, and they're a little bit sloping, and everything you can't find, and everybody you can't find, you find back here. It's all coming down, and here are the shops, here are the beautiful girls, and here is everything going on. And this is the sort of arch model. Well, model is always arch. This is the primary model of what a building could be. Well, in this big school I was just showing you, both ideas, the idea of the place and of the places is represented by this balconies, and the main street idea is represented by this long shape. I'm now designing a school which is maybe one step ahead, which is square, where everything is around a square space. Well, anyway, here you see the big piazza with steps again, always steps, and I have also photographs. I didn't take them with me, where all the steps are full of people that are discussing, eating, flirting. Everything is. The steps are sort of a catalyst, a pretext, a catalyst for all the social activities. What I try to do is make a communal space into social space, and an architect cannot make people meet, but an architect can technically be catalyst for exchange of people. And this is what I consider my profession, is to make conditions for things, the conditions that be catalyst for things. So here you see that all these steps around the big place. Here you see in the balustrades there are also tables, movable tables, so that people from the classrooms can sit outside and work in front of their classroom. And of course there was no money to make all the balustrades like this. If I had as much money as, well, I would have made all the balustrades into movable tables, and we had installed here also electric equipment so that you could make lamps in it. And my idea is that when you get the table down, then the light will be there, and when you put it back, then the light will extinguish. And this will happen sooner or later. It takes some time. I think it's very important to activate also the outside space, the space outside the classrooms. And so this is then the city center, the model of the city center, where all the people, where you can see where the beautiful girls are and the beautiful boys, and where you can see and be seen, which is basically what happens in the city. And so consequently, I love stairs, and I make as many stairs as possible. For me, stairs are not just a sort of minimal thing because you need to go to the next floor, but I make more stairs than necessary everywhere. Stairs, 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 the full building, because it is just enhancing the movement, and the movement of the people in between the hours then it's becoming really city-like. There's an unbelievable dynamics in that school. Everything is moving, and I think that your building must be able to help that, so to say. So no compartments, one big space with all these cross relationships, especially the sight lines. I'm always designing in such a way that you can see as many people as possible, everywhere, there. So we are moving in models, in always all the things in such a way that there's much openness to see and to be seen will be the outcome. So this is another building, a building I did years ago, but you see that the bridges are not on top of each other. And I think I don't need to explain this scheme, but this for me is one of the basic schemes. So if you like the aesthetics of this better, well then, what can I say? But for me, I like this aesthetics better. Yeah, and this is in fact what my story, how to get this dynamics. And of course, what you can do, you can interpret this as straight lines, but can you imagine the next building that I have these bridges like this? I think this is what we really have to do, and this gives the dynamics in the building. Help. And well, this was the cover of the Dutch edition of this book. We are having with the translator now. So in a couple of months, it will be here. I'll send you a copy to school, which in fact explains about space and the architect, what the architect, how the architect interprets the idea of space. And this is a building I don't show actually, where there's also this bridge. It is another theater where this bridge is crossing the foyer, so that when you are going into the auditorium, you are moving in space. And all these bridges that was the theater I've been showing you. All these bridges are thus that there's always this relationship, this sight lines, which I think is important. And to give you an American example of this, could you focus this a little bit? The Guggenheim in New York, you know, is a building that is subject of a lot of criticism, because there are many people who think that the idea of a spiral is inappropriate for a museum, and some people don't like to walk on this on these ramps, but maybe they're right. Maybe it's a very bad museum. But I think it's very good in the sense that you see from wherever you are, you can see the whole collection that you have to follow in advance, instead of all these musea where you are in rooms and you miss rooms because it's a labyrinth of rooms and you don't know how many you miss. So maybe the best pictures, the best painters you don't see because there are you are in the wrong room, and when you have just half an hour, it's very important that you know what there is and say, there I have to go, so I have to make some more spirals to get there. And so you have the same idea as a split level, the way you can look up and look down, and also you look through the circle. So I think it's really a piece of genius because of this idea how to make a communal space into a social space, because you don't see only the paintings, you can also have a view on all the nice people there are, your friends, your enemies. You have to be people that you owe money and everything. They're all there, so you can see where you should not go, and you can see where you should go as soon as possible. And so this, for me, is the prototype of a space that is composed so that it has the optimal conditions for social exchange. And you can do it better. I mean, of course, it's a lousy building, but you can do it better. But it remains the prototype for me. Help. They don't want anymore. This was about, so far it was about space, and the other thing is place. When view, outlook refers to space, protection refers to place. And so at the one hand, I think you must have in your building all these possibilities for outlook and seen, looking and being seen. At the other hand, there must be this minimal protection to be able to do your own thing and to not be disturbed. And let me say, the means to concentrate. And that's what, for instance, steps can do, and what you have to deal with in everything you make. This is my last pictures. This is the two poles of architecture I want to talk about. Most people consider this as the optimal architecture. And the pyramids are, of course, very beautiful. And it took me years to realize that it is not just objects, but actually a man-made landscape. So, I mean, both pictures are landscape. At the end, I come to the conclusion that architecture is landscape. And this is not new, because everybody's talking about landscape. There's nobody who calls his building. Everybody calls his building a landscape. And I think that's a good, it's a good sort of development. but it's nice to think of the opposition. This is an object-like landscape, and this is the opposite. This is dug. When you this you see already hours distance. This you don't see until the last minute. You think you are wrong, and then you come in and you see this Epidaurus theater. It's dug, so to say, in the ground, and this is for more than 10,000 people to celebrate their togetherness, to celebrate life, so to say. Whereas this is, I mean, for a moment, just for an hour, to celebrate one performance, being together, having this feeling not to be alone, which is actually the main thing of the city, to have people not feeling alone. And this is for one dead person, for one dead man, lying there until eternity. And this is an absolute opposition of things, and I think they're both very beautiful. But I would like to have more attention for this side of the medal, and I think that we can learn to so to say have more eye for social space. Thank you very much. Good applause. Thank you. Thank you.
This is one of the most powerful schools in the world. And we're in a city that does lousy architecture. The school board is going to build billions of dollars worth of schools. Tom Maine built a school for $35